imaginable. Could not even begin to prepare you for the suffering I'm about to inflict upon you all. Run and hide, for I am.
Yup. Against the critiques of all of those FNAF would never fit in Dead by Daylight and would ruin the game comments on the DBD subreddit, Springtrap has finally arrived in the entity's realm, and my god, has he already left quite the impression. The PTB has only been out since the 27th, and while recency bias is absolutely a thing, I can't help but admit that I feel like BHVR cooked pretty damn hard on this chapter. Of course, they didn't really have a choice, as Five Nights at Freddy's is likely to be the biggest license that BHVR will ever have the chance to collaborate with. The day the PTB dropped, Dead by Daylight's peak player count hit over 80,000 concurrent players, one of the highest peaks the game has ever seen, and this is just the PTB release, only accessible to PC players. This number is higher than even some of the live server releases of extremely popular chapters like Resident Evil and Silent Hill. So we can only speculate that the live release of the FNAF chapter is going to absolutely shatter any previous player count records the game currently has. If there was one thing that BHVR had to absolutely nail when presented with the opportunity of a FNAF chapter, it was aesthetics. And let me say, they absolutely delivered. Okay, so firstly I'd like to dive a little deeper into the sheer love and dedication that the team put into Springtrap's animations. The art team gave everything they had to make sure that this guy looks and sounds like a giant hunk of metal that just so happens to be carrying the body of a murderer. His motions are clanky and stiff, and all of his movements are accompanied by the sounds of metallic scraping and creaking. His movements sound just as worn down as his appearances are, and the loud impacts of his metal footsteps are both intimidating and also serve as a much-needed warning, as he can spend the majority of the match undetectable if he plays his cards right. I cannot confirm if this was done intentionally, but I personally like to believe that BHVR gave him such loud footsteps as a nod to the fact that alongside the camera aspects of FNAF, listening to sound cues is also equally important when it comes to beating those games. Of course, I'm probably just overthinking it. The reality of it is that it's likely his footsteps are loud because he's a giant metal robot. But hey, I can dream, right? On the topic of aesthetics, I'm sure the new map needs no introduction. Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, which I can't believe I'm saying in relation to Dead by Daylight, is stuffed to the brim with Easter eggs and nods to the series, including, but not limited to, children's drawings all over the walls, the death chair from the movie, and an endoskeleton that leaks out of the vents. There's tons of things we haven't even discovered on the map yet, but all I can say is that it is a extremely faithful adaptation. Okay, enough yapping about aesthetics. It's time to give some thoughts on Springtrap's gameplay mechanics. The simplest thing I could say about Springtrap's power is that it was done in a rather safe fashion, taking a page out of the books of several other existing killers, but with its own unique flair. Broken down to its most bare-bone levels, he's essentially a combination of killers like the Unknown and the Xenomorph, or the Huntress. Obviously that's a pretty common comparison because he wields a hatchet, but the projectile works very differently. He has a ranged attack, that being his fire axe, which I'm still baffled is something that they actually included, and the ability to traverse between the various doors that will spawn around the map. Having a decent understanding of how both ranged and teleporting killers work will aid in learning Springtrap significantly. Keeping with the theme of Five Nights at Freddy's, the devs gave Springtrap many opportunities to get grabs on survivors, jump scaring them and instantly lifting them onto his shoulder. Or, keeping them in a chokehold is actually what he does, not the shoulder thing like most of the other killers do. But anyways, thematically this feels extremely faithful. The grabs themselves seem to serve more as an aesthetically pleasing way to get downs as opposed to something that actually provides a strategic advantage. The grabs themselves do save the killer a lot of time, but grabs from the security office are something that the survivors can avoid entirely, while grabs from the axe only save a couple of seconds, which, while impactful, doesn't seem to be where his strength comes from. Speaking of the axe portion of his power feels a bit out of place and more like fan service, but I can understand that they needed to give him something more than just a teleport, and I can't deny yanking the axe out of a survivor and pulling them directly into a chokehold, excuse me, I wrote on your shoulder, I'm so used to killers putting people on their shoulders, is extremely satisfying. The axe projectile is going to take some time to get used to for most players though, as it does not function like any other killer's ranged attack. Rather than being a long-distance, straight-traveling projectile, the projectile is limited to a short range that has very heavy gravity. This does come with the upside that it can be tossed over shorter map tiles, and the axe is still capable of falling fast enough to hit a survivor on the opposite side of the object, even if Springtrap doesn't have line of sight of them. The majority of Springtrap's skill cap, Jesus, try saying that a few times fast. Springtrap's skill cap will come from mastering this projectile. I now want to take a moment to talk about the camera system and the survivor side of the gameplay. Right out the gate, I just want to say this. In my currently limited experience with this chapter, I do not see any reason for survivors to use the security office as a method of transport if they are not communicating with their teammates. The risk is simply just too high. Springtrap has ample time to get a free grab off of any survivor using the office. The only time it's a passable option is if you were aware of Springtrap's location and can confirm that he is distracted, usually with a chase, for long enough that you can safely pass through. Outside of that, there's no reason to take the risk. You do not have enough time to escape him through a door if he's chasing you, as he will enter right behind you and immediately catch you.
Do you think he can catch us in this time? Oh,
And for the love of God, do not go straight into the security office when the match starts. It's extremely likely Springtrap will be doing the exact same thing to quickly access the other side of the map, and you will be granting him tons of early pressure. Okay, one last aspect of gameplay I'd like to cover, the camera system. It's probably too soon to tell, but I gotta be honest. I feel like the system is very underwhelming for the survivors. All that the survivors can do is mark Springtrap by looking at him through the cameras long enough, granting all survivors the ability to see an outline of him from anywhere on the map. And while information on the killer always does come in handy, it doesn't seem to justify the time a survivor has to spend looking through the cameras just for a chance to spot him. I personally think the survivors should be able to use the camera system to interact with the doors directly, such as a lock system. One thing about Springtrap's door traversal ability is that it has no cooldown. He can traverse these doors as frequently as he likes, and I don't think that should change as the fluidity of his power seems to feel very nice to use. But survivors should have some kind of option to slightly hamper that ability at the cost of power. So here's what I propose. While accessing the security system, survivors have the ability to lock the door of the camera that they currently have selected, all at the cost of accelerating their power drain, just like in the games. If the power runs out, all the doors will be unlocked and cannot be relocked until the power regenerates. When a survivor locks a door, there will be a visual indicator on the external perspective of the locked door. If Springtrap attempts to traverse through the locked door, his animation in the security office will be interrupted, forcing him to try and breach the door himself. It will take him a few extra seconds, similar to locking lockers against the dredge, and will cause the door to emit a breaching sound on the outside, alerting nearby survivors that Springtrap is about to breach the door. Unlocked doors will still not grant any warning when he emerges. Overall, I'm very satisfied with his gameplay, and I feel he's got potential for a very high skill ceiling with options of a simpler playstyle for more casual players. Lastly, I'd like to take a moment to commend Behavior for Springtrap's add-on design, as he boasts some extremely creative and fun options. Of course, he comes with the standard reduce X by 10%, give mangled and hemorrhage to survivors you hit with your ability, etc., etc. But he also sports some very creative add-ons featuring some very unique designs that I honestly hope to see more of in the future. Some of my favorites include the party hat that increases the AoE of the axe when it hits the environment, which while it's on its own is not the best, but can be very strong when paired with other add-ons that give you buffs for entering the axe's radius. The Faz coin, which allows you to transfer your terror radius to your axe and gives you undetectable for a few seconds, which while it doesn't seem like much, can permit Springtrap to permanently leave his terror radius elsewhere, as if the Springtrap player is using the security office frequently enough, can remain undetectable for the majority of the match. And the Celebrate poster, which, while not good, is such a silly and fun design for an add-on that I cannot help but love it. It essentially locks you and any survivor you hit with the axe into a high-speed 1v1 similar to the Move It or Lose It effect from the Anniversary event, and I honestly would just love more silly, goofy add-ons like this for other killers. So, in conclusion, my first impressions of the FNAF X DVD chapter are very satisfied, which is a relief because I was worried this chapter was going to end up butchered. The devs undoubtedly put a mountain of effort into making this chapter feel authentic, and I, for one, am very excited for it to hit live servers, despite the inevitable server overloads that will come with that release. Thank you all for watching to the end of the video. I know this is quite different from my normal style of content, but I'm just looking to experiment a bit, so if you guys enjoy this longer form of content, or if you'd rather I stick to shorter form content, comedy, and music, just let me know.